Ohayo! This video is to go over vocabulary words for the extended family. And it's got the same format as the other sheet. So we're going to do a list for my family members, someone else's family members, and then we'll briefly talk about when you're addressing them. So if it is my grandmother, we say sobo. Sobo. Sobo, my grandmother. Grandfather, sofu. Sofu. My aunt is oba. Uncle, oji. Cousin, you can probably already read it, it's just right there, itoko. There's not a kanji that people use for itoko, typically. Niece, wa mei desu. Nephew wa oi. Feel free to pause the video if I'm going too fast. There's just a lot of members and I don't want to take too long. Ja. Daughter wa musume. Musume desu. Son, musuko. Musuko. And grandchild, what? Mago. Mago desu. So these are all of the family member words for your extended family. If it's my, your own. My grandmother, sobo. My grandfather, sofu. My aunt, oba. My uncle, oji. Cousin, itoko. Niece, mei. Nephew, oi. Daughter, musume. My son, musuko. And grandchild, mago. All right, for someone else's grandmother, I'm going to write it here so I have enough space. That's where I'll write the hiragana. Oba-san. Oba-san. Someone else's grandfather. Oji-san. Oji-san. So if you think about what we just did over here, you have to watch out because you have aunt as oba and uncle as oji and grandma as oba-san and grandfather as oji-san. And now we're going to take a look at if it's your aunt. Oba-san. So the only difference is that elongated ah in the middle. And same for uncle, oji-san, oji-san. oji-san, oji-san. If it's someone else's cousin, you just use their name most likely. So that's the kanji for name. So we're just going to use their name. And probably their title, like san. If they're older than you, probably san. If they're younger than you might use kun or chan. If it's niece, you'll probably use mei or just their name again. And nephew, same thing. So I'm just going to do that for the same. You might say mei, you might say oi. And then for someone else's daughter, you're just going to be adding san for daughter and son. I'll go ahead and write it all out again. Musume san. Musume san. Musuko san. Musuko-san. And for grandchild, it tends to get the honorific prefix at the front. Omago-san. Excuse me. Omago-san. So this would be for someone else's extended family members. All right. So what if you're talking to these family members? If you're talking to your grandmother and you're saying, "Hey, Grandma," what would you say? Well, in most of the cases, if they're family members that are older than you, you're going to use this polite term as well. So I'm just going to draw an arrow because I'm a little lazy. I'm just going to move that over there. Of course, if you have a close relationship with this family member, you might occasionally have people drop the O at the beginning. And so you could just end up saying ba-san. And of course, you might also use a chan here. And that would be if you're really close and you're showing that endearment for that family member. So it might be ba-chan, ba-san, or you might say oba-san, oba-chan, with the O. And that's true for all of these. Probably less so for aunt and uncle, unless you're really, really close. But for grandma and grandpa, since they're often sort of important in their grandchildren's lives, you might get those terms of endearment like ba-chan, especially if it's a young person. As you get older, you tend to use the more formal terms. All right, and then for all of the rest, because they tend to be either your peer or someone who's younger than you, you just use the name of the person and, that's ugly, and san, the name of the person and san. And of course, you could also use kun or chan. But for all of them, we're just going to be using the name. That's the kanji for name. So no special term to learn for that. Okay? And these are the extended family member terms. The way to say extended family, there's a few words, but I'm going to choose one that's pretty easy. And that is this at the top. Daikazoku. Now, the reason that I hesitate a little is because this dai, we've actually seen before with daisuki and daikirai. It just means big. And so daikazoku can mean just a big family, but I think it's often used to describe your extended family, so the bigger family, not just your people at your home or just your parents and your siblings, but also the other people in your family. There are a few different terms. They're just a little more complex, and since this uses this stuff something that we've already seen, it's going to be a little easier for us to remember. So daikazoku. All right, I'm going to flip this over onto the back and give a couple more words that you might find useful. If you have a step family member, you just add the prefix giri no. Giri no. So if you have a step mom, giri no haha. If you have a step sister who's older, giri no ane. So you just put the family member word right here in the squiggle, and you precede it with giri no. If you're an only child, you can say this. Hitorikko. There's the chisaitsu, so we get the double K from ko. Hitorikko. And that's an only child. Remember, hitori means one person, and then ko means child. Hitorikko. I think... Oh, and if you want to say twins... you say this. Futago. Futago. Futa, like from futari, which is two people, and go from this ko, it just gets a ten when it's added as a compound word, and we get futago for twins. And I'm trying to think, oh, maybe you want to talk a little bit about pets. Petto. Petto. Petto is easy, and the most common pets are probably dog and cat. Inu is dog, and neko is cat. If you have a different kind of pet, you could stick with petto, or feel free to look up that word for that particular animal. When we're talking about how many people are in our family, you would not count your pets because the counting words for small animals is going to be different from the counting word for a family, and so that would be really, I think, odd. If you had like 3 people in your family plus your dog to say yonin, that would be very weird, I think, in Japanese, because they're not the same thing, so you can't count them the same with the same words. Well, I hope that gives you what you need to be able to talk about more of your family, especially if you have different people that live with you. And good luck with your presentation and as you learn to say these words.